Okay, y'all. I just finished What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This was a audiobook that I listened to through my library on Hoopla. Um, Not for me. It was. I'm gonna give it 3 stars, which for me is a book that was competently written. It was a good book. It was a decent book. Probably not gonna read it again. Which makes me kind of sad because I had heard that T. Kingfisher could kind of fill that literary fabulist void that has been left in my library since certain allegations came out against a certain author. um, and unfortunately, like, retellings are hard. This book is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, which I didn't know when I started it. But then when I went to check it out, I saw the summary and I was like, oh, this sounds like an interesting story. I love retellings as a genre. I write retellings. I love reading retellings. I think that we need more of them, honestly, because I love getting to see someone put their own spin on a story that I already know the end of. Like, I'm not someone who reads for the what comes next tension. I engage with literature differently. That's not something that I find super interesting. Sometimes it is, but like, I've gotten to the point where I've read so much and I've studied writing so much that, like, I can typically guess what's going to happen and be right about 90% of the time. So the whole plot, what's going to happen next, just not my vibe, not my thing. It takes a lot to surprise me. Um, that being said, my problem with this book, the reason it wasn't a 4 or 5 star for me, is it did feel too predictable. And having just told you that I really like retellings, you're probably thinking, well, it's a retelling. It's supposed to be predictable. Let me explain what I mean. In my opinion, the best retellings are stories that take a story that you already know and spin it in a way and show you something that you couldn't have learned originally from the short story or from the book or from whatever it is, whatever the original text was. This one doesn't really do that. It doesn't really give us more depth to the characters. It doesn't give us like, the big change in this story that I saw was something that I guessed in the very first scene. And the book kind of played it as a, like, oh, well, they figure out that this is the thing. But like I said before, like, I'm pretty good at guessing twists, which is annoying to a certain extent, but it makes me engage with literature differently. And unfortunately, this one just didn't have a good enough spin on it that I could be like, oh, that was good. It was competently written. It wasn't quite knock it out of the park in terms of, like, having a unique voice or unique prose. So I do have another T. Kingfisher book on my shelf. I have a physical copy of Thornhedge. I'm probably going to read it at some point in the coming year. So I'm going to hold off on saying, like, don't read any T. Kingfisher or, like, go read everything she's ever written, until after I've read Thornhedge. But those are my thoughts on What Moves the Dead. I was not super impressed. I might see what the next one is. What Feasts at Night, I think, is the name of the next one. I might see if it's another retelling. If it is, I'll probably give it a shot, because this book was really short. It was only 5 hours of audiobook. So it wasn't too big of a time commitment. But yeah, I wasn't super impressed.